Hello, hello. This is Marina from Heal Your Heart, Heal Your Body with episode 5 Raising Boys on Car Rides. Okay, you mamas out there who are raising boys, I'm going to share some real truths about what I went through raising my boys and how I ended up learning to deal with my frustrations, their frustration, the slamming doors, the screaming, stomping upstairs, how we learn to come to a common ground, and that's where the car ride comes in. So let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Marina here, and I'm so excited to share this with all you mamas out there who are raising boys. Mine are 18 months apart, and some days I felt like I was being tag teamed by these guys. Some say it's sort of like raising twins, and at times it was. I know they weren't born on the same day, but some days it was rough. So as my boys were growing up, I was at home raising them. I was working for a while and at the school district so I could have the same days on and off as they did. And then it got to the point where I had to be home because Dad wasn't able to coincide with his hours, my hours, so I became a stay-at-home mom. And you stay-at-home moms out there, I bless you and I pray for you because I've been on both sides of the coin. And it's a hard task because you never get away. Never get away. So in this period of growing up with my boys, they were normal boys. We live on a large parcel of property. They ran, they played, they got dirty, they fought, they played again with each other. And that's the craziest thing about boys is that they'll like beat the tar out of one another and you punish them in timeout, separate rooms. And 2 minutes later, they're off punishment. They're like, hey, you want to go play again? And I'm like, you were just beating the tar out of one another. How are you just going back? Well, it's the beauty of boys. So as my boys grew up and there was a distance between their father and I, even though we lived in the same home, I was single parenting. And some of you may understand this and some of you may not. A lot of my friends who were divorced and they were single parenting because they were the only parent in the home, they were like, you don't understand. At least you have a husband. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Some days it's harder when you're looking at the human in the house, but they're not helping you parent. His theory was we can't both gang up on them at the same time. Well, it's not ganging up. It's called co-parenting. We come together on a resolution. We tell them, no, can't do that, or yes, or please stop that, or this is how it goes. Mine didn't think that was necessary. If one was taking care of it, then that was it. But he never took care of it. He would call me into the room. They're fighting. Can you take care of this? Well, the last I knew, you had Dad on your name tag. So long story short was that I was in a co-parenting home, but I was the only one parenting. So my frustration level was extremely high. As my boys got older and their antics and their trying, which every kid does, is test their boundaries and trying patience of the parent, got bigger. You know, that old saying, little kids, little problems, big kids, bigger problems. So, and I don't really like to look at it that way, but it sort of works out in that sense. Anyway, in these single parenting with the other parent is living in the home, the frustrations was just high levels, and it became to that the doors were slamming, hitting walls, stomping up, spankings, like everything you don't want. I was at one point, they were at one point, and it was getting so ugly. The name calling, the screaming, the hitting one another, the telling each other they hate them. It's not what I envisioned of having children and how they were going to grow and behave. And so I would pray, but I wasn't completely fully engaged with God because I was so frustrated in my life. I was 100% mom, 100% home care, took care of the house, 100% everything. And it was just taking a toll on me. And I was honestly, I'm going to be honest here, I was taking it out on my kids. I was frustrated, so I yelled more. I probably said things I shouldn't have said. I'm guilty of it. And I'm sure some of you moms can relate to that, or even dads if you're listening. This isn't just for moms, but I'm a mom, so I can see on the mom side of it. And it got so ugly that this house was constantly screaming. Nothing was getting resolved. Nothing was cohesive. Yes, there were spankings. Yes, and I'm so sorry for it, and I've shared to my children how sorry I am for it. But it's what happened. I can't turn back the clock. I can just move forward from when I learned. So one day I was so aggravated at my son, and it was probably because of the words he used towards me. He was in middle school and really trying and testing the boundaries. So I said, let's go. Let's get into the car. And he's like, I'm not getting in the car. He thought I was taking him somewhere to get rid of him. No. Let's get into the car. My thought process was, let's get into the car because we can't yell, scream like banshees. We can't punch, kick like crazy people. We can't get out. We can't run away, lock a door. We have to deal with it in that car ride. Now, folks, the first car ride was nothing but screaming, crying, kicking seats, everything that I thought couldn't happen in a car ride. It did. To where we came home and it continued into the house. It did. Slamming doors, screaming, hollering, even a spanking. Yeah, it happened. So as I continued to think about this, and I kept discussing it with my husband, I'm like, we have to handle this together. This is getting out of control. I can't take the stress anymore. How many of us have said that? I can't take the stress anymore. I can't do this. I can't be a parent. God, help me. I'm not parenting as you want me to. So I just prayed on it. And prayed on it. And prayed on it. And in Ephesians 5:2, Paul encourages them to follow Christ in the example of walking in love. Well, holy Hannah, I was not walking in love, and I was not showing an example to my children about walking in love. I was a lunatic, a raving, screaming lunatic. So I needed to get a grip on myself. One, I signed up for therapy, and off I went. But when I came out of therapy, I was so stinking aggravated at my husband. One, because it wasn't his gig to go to therapy. And two, after talking about it and bringing it all up, it didn't help me. It made the temper and the blood boil even more. So I kept saying, God, you got to show me the way. You got to show me the way. You have to show me the way. So what I did is one day I said, I can't take both of them at the same time when I'm going on a car ride. It's not going to help because one's, oh, he did this, he said this, he did this. Oh, did you see that? Mom, he just kicked the chair. Mom, he gave you a mean face. And it was worse. It just escalated it to the next level. So I said, okay, I have to figure this out. So I dropped the one that wasn't having the issue with a friend, and I took the other one. We had a conversation. There was no more screaming. He couldn't jump out of the car where the car was driving. And plus, I made a statement. If you jump out, I'm leaving you there, so you're going to have to find a way home. I would never do that. But I said it. So that was how I dealt with it. If you jump out, you're stuck on the side of the road. If you're hurt, whatever, somebody else is going to have to pick you up and bring you home or bring you to the hospital. So it's your choice to stay in this car until we finish this conversation. So that conversation, we drove around for 25 minutes in this town. Just drove around, talking, crying, listening, screaming, trying to figure out a conclusion of how we were going to deal with this. So when we realized that, I said, okay, this is the rules. We deal with it in the car. We have it all figured out before we pull in the driveway. If there's a consequence, we know what the consequences is before we drive in the driveway. Before we open the doors, it's I love you. We know what the consequences are. We know what the action is. And then it's over. We don't discuss it anymore. We move on. Well, that first 30-minute call felt like forever. Forever. So after we finished that 30-minute call, it was so much more peaceful. But the fighting did continue, and it did continue to escalate, and it did continue to do all that crazy stuff. Excuse my phone from ringing, but I'm really in the flow here, and I don't want to stop to answer it or to pause this. So, on to the story and how we came up with this resolving things in a car ride. So as I was always being anxious about everything and making sure everything was going okay and everything was being all right, and this one's not being punished more than the other one, it weighed on me even more. So in Philippians 4:6, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." So after that first ride, I was like, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for letting us come to a resolution of what this issue was. So that's when car rides started. If I got a phone call, one of my sons was very known for I was getting phone calls for him on a regular basis. I couldn't take him every day on a car ride, so we would have to discuss and treat each incident a different way. But the larger the incident, or the more upset we were about what happened, the car ride we were going on a car ride. And the conversation sometimes got deeper and deeper, and we were able to understand each other more because we were in an area where we couldn't escape it. So you had to deal with it or you weren't going home. We would run out of gas before we would go home because I was not opening that door, stopping anywhere until we were at a complete understanding of what the process was. So I would say to him, okay, we're this close to running out of gas. If we're going to run out of gas, you're still not getting out of the car. So we had to, it was a limits that we had to do this in order to, one, save our relationship, save our family, save our home from the craziness and the lunacy that was going on in here. I mean, it was just that we didn't even want to come up the driveway some days because the fighting was so horrendous. Between my boys, between myself and the boys. Then when Dad came home, me explaining it to Dad, and Dad wasn't showing interest, or he says, well, I'm not ganging up on him, and I'm not taking care of it. Then that escalated. So we needed this place of strategy. It was almost like entering the courtroom, but that car was where we had to enter, close the doors, and be in there together. So as this continued on, the car rides, as they got older, their problems got bigger. I learned more about my children in car rides, which gave us both an understanding that they knew that no matter what they did wrong, I was there for them. There was a consequence, but I was always going to love them unconditionally. Now, that's given them full grace, as God gives me grace for the way that I was parenting. Every night I would go to bed crying. I couldn't let them see me cry, but I went to bed crying like, I'm a horrible mother, God. Please restore this. Show me the way. Please forgive me by the way I behaved. And He gave me grace every day. And when my kids realized that no matter what they did, no matter how angry we were, once we got in that car and we went for that car ride, at the end, they knew I had their back. But they still had to pay their consequence. I was not going to go fight the school or the teacher or anyone else in that matter if my son actually did wrong. If you did wrong, you're paying the piper, you're paying the consequences, and you're going to do what you need to do to fix it. That's how I believed, and that's how I taught them. Now they're young men, and they still say to me, Mom, you always taught us that we have to pay the consequences. And it's true, you had to. So as we went on with the car rides, their buddies learned about car rides. Oh no, Mateo's going on a car ride, he must have done something wrong. Or Nick's going on a car ride, he must have done something wrong. Before you know it, their friends were like, Mama C, that was my name around town. Can I go for a car ride? And I used to always make the statement, your mom and dad have to approve the car ride. And the situation needs to be attended by your parents that you and I go together, or you go alone and you share with your parents what the problem is and what the deal is. So I now had their buddies asking me, they're like, Mama Crispy, I need a car ride. Can you take me on a car ride? So it became this thing in our small town that I would take them on a car ride. Now, don't get me wrong, car rides weren't always for punishment or for bad, because I did take them sometimes and celebrate them in a car ride. And we would stop for a meal, or it would just be myself and that one child, because they needed to be celebrated for their accomplishment, or they needed to be talked to. Maybe they just had something weighing on their heart. They would ask me, Mom, can we go for a car ride? And I'll never forget that one day my son, I think he was 24 at the time, and he texted me and he's like, Mom, I think I need a car ride. But it wasn't for punishment. It wasn't for anything he did wrong. He just needed time and space to talk. And when you're in a household, there's somebody coming in, as you heard, the phone rings or something goes on, and he doesn't get that 100% of my attention. In that car ride, he gets all of me. So at 24 years old, he was driving this time, but he and Mom went for a car ride. So friends and moms out there, maybe you might have your own way of doing it. Maybe you might want to adopt the car ride. Use it. Maybe you have some questions for me. Reach out. Go to marinacrispyhnp.com and set up an appointment with me. Just a quick get to know me. It's free. Have some conversation. We're all parents. We all struggle. Some days it literally sucks. I get it 100%. I get it. But when you need to find that space and time where you can make that connection and give your child 100% time, take a car ride. Take it to the car. Set your own rules. Mine were, once we get in here, we have to discuss it. We don't get out. The car does not stop unless it's a traffic light. We do not stop this vehicle until we've come to a conclusion and we say, I love you in the end. So make up your own rules, however it works for you. Or find another thing other than a car ride, but make sure you give that one child that attention. Because no matter what, even if they've done wrong, and my children have done wrong, it wasn't petty stuff. There were some big problems that we dealt with in that car ride. Always let them know that they have you unconditional love like God gave you. Complete forgiveness, complete grace. It's not held over their head for weeks. No grudge holding. No say you did this, don't you remember? It can't be there. Once that car comes in the driveway and you shut that door, what took place in that car is done. Just as when you ask God for your forgiveness and He forgives you, He gets amnesia. He doesn't remember that any longer. You need to get it too. You need to let it stay in the car. Shut the door. The consequences or whatever the punishment, if there need be, is already taken care of before the door shuts. And your child knows that they start all over again with full grace. Okay, my friends, I hope to see you on the other side. Visit me at www.marinacrispyhnp.com, or you can follow me at Marina Crispy on Instagram or Twitter. I'd love to see you. I'd love to chat with you. If you have any questions, please reach out. And no, mamas out there, you're not alone if you're raising those boys, even girls, because I know my friends have had a lot of girls. You can do this with anyone, but I did it with my boys. Okay, I hope you all stay well, be blessed, and take a little time for yourselves. Love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.